Hey everyone, welcome back to a new r/malicious compliance video. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Manager Didn't Want My Help. Years ago, I was trying to make a career out of a miserable job in a shop I'd been working at for a couple of years by that point. I was getting pretty comfortable and efficient at the workflow for the customer service department. Now, this place is known for having the lowest labor hour rates in the industry. So to say management was overworked is an understatement. They had also gone through a buyout by new owners who implemented these strict labor standards only months before I was hired. So everyone was getting used to these new tighter standards and were on the edge for possibly being let go if there were any unnecessary positions. Back when I was young and dumb, I tried really hard to show my management potential. I enjoy the challenge of extra responsibility and making it work. One of the frontline supervisors was a guy I really looked up to. But on this day, I'm going to blame stress on his part, he was apparently in no mood. Even though I believe he normally trusted me to make sound decisions. Now, when you are on register in this shop, it takes about 5 minutes from the time you log off or close the register until you can walk away. Even longer if it's a particularly large order. Ideally, you, the grunt employee, don't have to worry because the supervisor will log you off about 5 minutes before the end of your shift. Otherwise, you would communicate with the supervisor and they would rush over to log you off. Or just jump in to finish your order and let you go home. So one day I'm approaching the end of my 8-hour shift. I have about 5 minutes left. But the manager in charge is in the back office trying to catch up on closing duties. So I take my last customer and log off. It wasn't too busy overnight, so there weren't any lines by me logging off. After that, I knock on the office door to let him know I'm leaving. He proceeds to chastise me for locking myself off without letting him know. Then nobody is to lock themselves off because it's the manager's responsibility. And he's right, that's the policy. That's what I get for trying to help out. Literally the next day we're working together again. It's the same situation. Starting about 10 minutes before the end of my shift, I'm watching the clock, watching for him to come out of the break room. 5 minutes to go. If I don't log off now, I won't get out in time. Time to go, but still no manager. I keep working another 15 minutes until he comes out, looks at me, looks at the schedule, looks at me again. Oh, weren't you off 15 minutes ago? I played dumb. Oh yeah, I guess I was. Why didn't you say anything? I figured a manager would come let me out. He was a little more accepting of my help after that, and I was 20 minutes of overtime richer. The next story is called Travel Policy. Several years ago, I worked for a government contractor and traveled extensively. Usually it was for meetings in godforsaken places. But sometimes it was somewhere cool or to spend time on a ship, sometimes even both. For one such ship ride, I was to board an aircraft carrier in Japan, sail to Guam and get a flight from the ship to the island before flying home. If you've never been a non-essential passenger on an aircraft carrier, you don't get a departure time when you are planning your trip. You get a departure window of several days, and you only get to know for sure the day before your flight. So I knew a range of dates that I might arrive on Guam. The plan was to book a hotel for all 4 nights and until we know we were flying the next day to just push a reservation back before the deadline. Once we had the date, we would move our flights home to the next day to only spend 1 night in a hotel. My boss made his reservation at a day's inn while we discussed this plan in his office. He said it was the only hotel on our travel site that was within the per diem limit, so I should book soon. But by the time I was at my desk, the last room was gone. The only hotel available through our corporate travel site was a junior presidential suite at a pricey beach resort that ran somewhere around $1,400 per night. I looked around budget travel sites and direct booking with a few hotels. But there was a major fleet exercise happening around the island, and hotels were packed. There were even rumors that they would set up tents on unused airstrips to house all the Marines coming in. I told our travel department all of this and proposed that I book an Airbnb. It's with the caveat that I would have to pay for all 4 nights, even if I only stayed for 1, but that it would still be $1,000 cheaper than 1 night at the only hotel available. My proposal was raised to the head of the travel department, who wrote back rather aggressively that if I booked an Airbnb, I would only be reimbursed for the night I actually stayed there, and that I would not be reimbursed at all if I booked the expensive hotel. My instructions were to call our travel office when I landed. They would find whatever was available, and that a room within the per diem rate would surely become available. Fast forward to landing in Guam. The first call I made was to change the next possible flight home, but I had missed the last one of the day, so I called the travel office. Of course, with my luck, the person who answered was new. And by new, I mean she had just started while I was on the ship. She looks it up and says there are no rooms available. I told her I was pretty sure there was 1 room available, and she replied, well, yes, but it's way over the per diem rate. I explained everything and told her to ask the head of her department, that he knew the situation. After a long hold, she came back and said that I had a couple of options. I could search around by myself for an Airbnb that was within per diem, see if my boss would let me stay in his room on a cot, or she could book the suite and I would be reimbursed in full. So, on my expense report, I made a special note that I had no transportation expense to get to the airport in Guam, because my hotel room came with a private car. The only fallout was that they got very picky about my expense reports for a while. But I was a pretty by-the-book business traveler, so it usually wasn't an issue. But one time, a hotel I booked was 1 cent per night over the per diem limit, so they rejected my entire expense report. I filled out a new one. It was a terrible online system, so I couldn't just edit the old one, explaining that I would pay the excess out of pocket, which is in line with policy. I also forwarded the rejection email to my boss, CCing the head of travel and asking which budget code I should charge for the half hour it took to rectify this 4-cent mistake. He gave me his managerial budget, and funny enough, they stopped questioning my expenses after that. What do you think about the stories? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you like the video, don't forget to hit that button. It really helps. The last story is called Bringing Everyone in Court to Laugh. In the late 1990s, I was a teacher. A girl in one of my classes began stalking me. We had her charged, and eventually the case came to trial. At any rate, I live in a small town, so her lawyer and I knew one another. He was a jerk, and I guess he thought I was one too because we didn't get along well. Our kids attended the same daycare, and our wives worked together, so it was often very tense in social situations. I spent a day on the stand being questioned by the prosecutor, then faced cross-examination. The story is complicated, but a big part of the case had to do with certain assignments the girl had done well in my class, and her interpretations of the corrections and comments I made on them. For example, this girl had a very advanced vocabulary for her age. But when she didn't really know what she was talking about, she'd throw a bunch of big words at me, thinking it sounded impressive. My comment was something to the effect of, "I don't see enough of you," which her lawyer tried to claim was evidence that I was encouraging her. So he was questioning me on each and every assignment I had ever given out in the classes this girl had taken from me. She kept all the marked assignments. He zeroed in on one in particular. It was a satire assignment, and the students were to make their own outrageous suggestions for a social problem. This girl had misunderstood what satire meant and just went for something gruesome. In court, the lawyer suggested that I was encouraging her to reveal her dark fantasies. I said it was a satire assignment, and she clearly didn't understand it. The rest of the exchange went something like this. I put it to you that you were the one who suggested she write this. He holds up the essay. No, as I suggested, the assignment was supposed to be a satirical suggestion. That's not what she did. Come now, when you gave the assignment out, you knew you would get some strange essays back, didn't you? No. We spent 2 classes reading and critiquing a piece, and we spent another class discussing satire. So you're saying when you handed out the assignment, you didn't think they'd misunderstand? I thought they might. So you didn't say anything to head that off? Yes, I gave examples. What do you mean, examples? When we talked about satire, I gave examples of different kinds of satirical writing. Like what? Stories, plays, poems, and even jokes. Did you read all these things with them? No, the stories and plays I summarized, and I shared a couple of jokes. Do you remember any of them? Maybe one. What was the joke? I made a long pause, as if I was recollecting. Do you know why researchers are using lawyers instead of rats for experiments? Because there are more lawyers than rats, the researchers don't get attached to them like they do to rats. And there are just some things you can't get a rat to do. The judge, prosecutor, court reporter, and several police officers watching all laughed out loud. The judge had to call a brief recess to restore order. We still see each other every now and then. I always smile and wave. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like. And if you want to see more videos, don't forget to subscribe. Have a great day and stay safe. Bye bye.